Okay, let's unpack this. McDonald's,
Yeah.
the Golden Arches, the Big Mac. I mean, it's absolutely everywhere, right?
Totally. Over 100 countries serving millions every single day.
It's so incredibly familiar, almost like, part of the furniture, that you might think you already know the whole story.
And that's the really interesting part. The sheer recognizability of McDonald's, it's actually a kind of camouflage.
Camouflage. How so?
Well, it often completely masks the deep strategic genius and, frankly, the complex history behind that simple, familiar facade.
Good.
It's fundamentally much more than just quick burgers and fries.
Exactly. So our mission in this deep dive is to, peel back those layers.
Right.
We've got a stack of sources here, articles, historical accounts, business analysis, basically, to guide us through what's really been going on under those arches all these years.
And we're going to trace the journey, right from its humble origins in California with the actual McDonald brothers.
The original guys.
Yeah.
Then understand Ray Kroc's pivotal and, sometimes pretty controversial empire-building role. Look at the almost like scientific precision that defines their operations.
The machine behind it all.
Exactly. Touch on some significant controversies like, remember the beef tallow story?
Oh, yeah, the fries.
We'll get into that. And finally, see how they're navigating the future, especially in the super crowded U.S. market.
So think of this as your shortcut to being genuinely well-informed about a company that didn't just, join an industry.
Wow.
It completely redefined it. Get ready for some truly surprising facts and hopefully quite a few aha moments along the way.
Should be fun.
All right, let's start at the very beginning. Miles away from global domination, back in California.
Right.
And forget Ray Kroc for just a second. The real spark, the actual foundational innovation, came from two brothers from New Hampshire.
Richard, Dick, and Maurice Match McDonald.
Exactly. They weren't born into the restaurant world or anything. No, they headed west looking for opportunity like so many people did.
And their early ventures were, pretty typical for the time, right?
Totally typical. A hot dog stand in 1937 near a racetrack.
Okay.
Then by 1940, McDonald's Barbecue in San Bernardino. Classic drive-in.
Huge menu, car hops rolling up to your window. The whole 9 yards.
Everything you'd expect back then.
But they weren't satisfied with just typical. They had this incredible eye for, process and efficiency.
Yeah, they saw the bottlenecks, they saw the wasted steps, the limits to profit in that traditional model.
And that critical insight led to something pretty radical in 1948.
Oh, hugely radical. They shut down that successful drive-in.
Wait, shut down a successful place?
Yep, shut it down and completely redesigned the entire operation from the ground up.
Wow.
And they introduced the Speedy service system.
The Speedy service system.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds like just making food fast, but it was much more profound, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It was an engineered system.
Engineered?
Yeah, this was a true precursor to the modern fast food assembly line. They didn't just run a restaurant. They applied industrial efficiency principles to food service.
Like Henry Ford, but for food.
Exactly. They deconstructed the whole process, order, prep, delivery into these optimized, repeatable tasks. Factory logic, basically.
Applying factory logic to burgers in the 1940s. That's wild. What did that actually look like in the restaurant itself?
Okay, first off, they drastically cut the menu, way down.
How far down?
Just the 9 most profitable items, 15-cent hamburgers, cheeseburgers, soft drinks, milk, coffee, pie.
Simple.
And eventually fries replaced potato chips. But yeah, super focused, no huge variety, just volume on the top sellers.
And the car hops. Those are such a staple of the drive-in scene.
Gone. They switched to a self-service counter.
No way. Customers had to get out of their cars.
Yep. Walk up, order, get your food. This was a huge departure for people used to being served in their cars.
I bet that confused some people.
Oh, definitely. Initially, some customers were confused, maybe even a bit annoyed. But here's the thing. It allowed them to slash prices.
The trade-off.
Right. And key for speed, they started pre-cooking hamburgers and keeping them warm under heat lamps. Instant service.
Pre-cooking burgers, eliminating car hops, simplifying the menu. These are standard fast food things now.
Exactly.
But back then, it must have felt revolutionary, maybe even a bit crazy.
It really was. Quick service, consistent quality, dramatically lower prices.
It wasn't an overnight sensation with everyone, you said. Customers had to adjust.
Yeah, there was an adjustment period, but the model worked. It was quick, it was predictable, and it was incredibly affordable.
And crucially, they didn't just stop there in San Bernardino. They actually started franchising this concept before Ray Kroc.
That's right. Our sources say they had 9 operational locations by the time he even found them.
9, okay. And what about the Golden Arches? Iconic. Kroc's idea.
Nope, not Croc's. They were designed by an architect named Stanley Clark Meston back in 1952 or 53.
Before Kroc.
Way before Croc's direct involvement with the symbol itself, it was part of the brothers' vision for the look of the restaurants.
So the brothers' true genius wasn't just selling burgers. It was creating this entirely new operational blueprint.
Absolutely. Built on volume, speed, consistency, they engineered a solution for that whole post-WWII, car culture, suburban America thing.
Operational efficiency was the real innovation.
Fundamentally, yes.
But as brilliant and revolutionary as the Speedy system was, it needed something else, a different kind of drive maybe, a different vision to explode.
From a regional success to a national and then global phenomenon.
Yeah, that's where Ray Kroc enters the story.
Right, and he was, maybe surprisingly, kind of a struggling salesman in 1954.
Selling what?
Prince Castle multi-mixers, you know, those machines that make like 5 or 6 milkshakes at once.
Oh, okay.
And his interest in the McDonald brothers definitely got sparked by this unusually large order. 8 mixers.
8 mixers for one restaurant.
Exactly. He thought, who on earth needs 8 milkshake machines? He had to go see it for himself.
And when he got there?
He was, and this is his word, astounded, just blown away by the Speedy system's efficiency.
And the crowds.
And the sheer volume of customers. He immediately saw this huge untapped potential for nationwide expansion.
A scale the brothers themselves weren't really pushing for.
Right. The brothers were more cautious, very focused on maintaining strict quality control themselves. Kroc saw, thousands of these across the country.
So Kroc's vision wasn't just about running one great restaurant. It was replication. Everywhere. Fast.
Precisely. He basically became their franchising agent, persuaded them to let him lead the national expansion.
What was the deal?
He took major responsibility for setting up new franchises nationwide, except for their existing licenses in California and Arizona. The initial agreement gave the brothers 0.5% of gross sales from those new spots.
Okay, 0.5%.
While Kroc himself took 1.9%.
And he didn't waste any time.
Not at all. April 1955, he launched McDonald's Systems, Inc., that later became McDonald's Corporation up in Des Plaines, Illinois.
Outside Chicago.
Yep. And right there, he opened his first franchised restaurant under that new system, the first one east of the Mississippi.
Which, it's important to note, Kroc kind of started blurring the lines on later, right, in his autobiography.
Yeah, that's a key point from the sources. His book often incorrectly cited that Des Plaines restaurant as the first McDonald's ever.
Starting to rewrite the narrative a bit?
Exactly, beginning to erase the brothers' original story.
Okay, so now you've got Kroc with the vision for scaling, the brothers' brilliant operational model. But building an empire takes cash.
Yeah.
Lots of it.
Massive capital.
And this is where another absolutely crucial figure comes in. Someone who maybe isn't as famous, but fundamentally changed the financial engine of the whole company.
Harry J. Sonneborn.
Sonneborn. Tell us about him.
Sharp finance guy. He'd been VP of finance for Tasty Freeze. Kroc met him in 1956, and Sonneborn quickly became McDonald's Corp's first president and CEO.
And he saw a problem with Kroc's focus.
Well, Kroc was all about selling burgers and franchises. But Sonneborn realized the profit margins on the food alone just weren't enough. Not for the kind of aggressive, rapid expansion Kroc dreamed of.
Especially needing money for land and buildings for the franchisee.
Exactly. That was the bottleneck. And Sonneborn's idea was, frankly, revolutionary.
Okay, what was it?
It completely flipped the script. He essentially told Kroc, Ray, you're not really in the hamburger business.
He's not. What business is he in?
You're in the real estate business.
Whoa. Okay, explain that.
Sonneborn argued McDonald's primary profit engine shouldn't be the food. It should be the real estate the restaurants sit on.
How would that work?
The plan was genius. Create a separate company, Franchise Realty Corporation, its job. Buy the land and buildings for new McDonald's locations.
Okay.
Then McDonald's Corporation leases that land, builds the restaurant, and then subleases it to the franchisee.
Ah, subleasing. But here's the kicker, right?
Here's the kicker. They sublease it with a significant markup, often 20% to 40% on their own lease cost. Plus, they take a percentage of the franchisee's sales as rent.
Wow. So it's not just rent collection. It's a built-in profit margin on the lease itself.
Yeah.
and a cut of the sales as rent on top of Kroc's original franchise fee.
Exactly. A double dip, essentially. And it provided this steady, appreciating revenue stream completely independent of burger sales.
That's the financial backbone right there.
Absolutely crucial for funding growth.
Right.
And arguably even more powerful.
Control.
Control.
Yeah. If a franchisee didn't meet the standards, didn't run the place right, McDonald's could terminate the franchise agreement.
Okay.
But crucially, McDonald's kept the lease. They kept the valuable real estate underneath.
Oof, that's leverage.
Huge leverage. It transformed McDonald's. People see burgers and fries, but Sonneborn turned it into, effectively, one of the world's largest commercial real estate owners.
That's incredible. So the public sees the food, but the underlying power structure, the financial engine, became significantly tied to the land. It let Kroc get financing, build way faster, and eventually
buy out the brothers.
Exactly. It gave him the financial muscle to do that.
And that brings us to the buyout itself, which gets pretty dramatic, especially if you've seen the movie.
Yeah, this is where the story gets complicated. By 1961, Kroc's ambition, his push for rapid, standardized expansion, it was creating friction.
With the brothers' more conservative approach, they wanted to stick to the original blueprint.
Right. Tension was building. Kroc decided he needed total control to scale the way he envisioned. He wanted to buy them out entirely.
Had the price tag.
$2.7 million. That's what the brothers asked for. The goal was to give each of them $1 million after taxes.
And Sonneborn, using that real estate strength, helped Kroc raise the money.
He was instrumental in securing the financing, yeah.
Now, this is where the Founder movie really leans in, portraying Kroc as, well, pretty ruthless.
It definitely is the central point of contention, and the movie brings it front and center. It dramatically depicts this handshake agreement.
The royalty deal.
Yeah, where the brothers were supposedly promised a 1% annual royalty on all future profits, which obviously would have been astronomical later on.
But is that actually what happened? What do our sources say?
Well, this is where it gets murky. The historical accounts vary quite a bit. Some sources suggest the brothers were content with the lump sum, didn't pursue a royalty. Richard McDonald himself reportedly said he had no regrets.
Okay.
But a nephew of the brothers strongly claims that handshake deal did exist, and Kroc simply never honored it.
So we can't definitively say, based on the sources, if the handshake deal happened or was broken.
We can't. There's no single undisputed account. It remains a debated point.
But what is clear from the sources is what happened right after the buyout.
Yeah, that part's less ambiguous. The brothers did not get to keep the McDonald's name for their original San Bernardino restaurant.
They had to rename their own place.
Yep, they renamed it the Big M.
Silence.
And then Kroc, in a move that many see as pretty vindictive.
What did he do?
He later opened a brand new McDonald's restaurant, basically right next door to the Big M.
No.
Which, predictably, eventually drove the brothers' original spot out of business.
That feels personal.
It certainly looks that way. And Kroc also moved very quickly after the buyout to file trademark applications for McDonald's, cementing his ownership of the brand.
Okay, so the transition was complex. A mix of negotiation, maybe some hardball tactics, maybe a disputed deal.
Definitely complex. You had the brothers' fundamental operational innovation. You needed Kroc's aggressive empire-building vision, and you absolutely needed Sonneborn's financial real estate genius.
All three were necessary pieces.
Exactly. But it's a story that really shows how the ability to scale and maybe even more importantly, control the narrative can eclipse the originators.
Kroc became the face, the name everyone knew.
Right. Raising questions about fairness and who ultimately gets the credit and the reward. And speaking of controlling the narrative, that movie, The Founder, with Michael Keaton, it definitely brought this whole story, especially the controversies, to a massive audience.
Absolutely did. And it's generally praised, for capturing Kroc's relentless ambition, his business drive.
Keaton was great in it.
Fantastic. But it's crucial to remember it's a drama. It's not a documentary.
It takes liberties for dramatic effect.
Exactly. Which really highlights how powerful popular media can be in shaping how we remember history.
So let's do a quick fact check against our source material. How accurate was the film on some of those key points we've discussed?
Okay. Ray Kroc's character in 1954, tenacious, ambitious salesman, sharp business instinct.
Yeah.
Pretty accurate. Minor detail. Sources say he flew to California. The movie shows him driving. But the essence of his personality and situation is right. It correctly shows the strain on his first marriage, too, though it leaves out his daughter.
What about the franchising origins?
Right.
The film implies Kroc started it.
Yeah, that's inaccurate. As we established, the brothers had already started franchising the Speedy system. They had, what, 6 locations operating before Kroc arrived?
Right, 6.
Yeah.
Okay. And the Golden Arches, the movie shows Kroc brainstorming them.
Also inaccurate. We know Stanley Clark Meston designed them in 52 or 53, well before Kroc was involved with the company structure or branding like that.
What about Kroc increasingly presenting himself as the founder?
That part the film gets right. Our sources confirm Kroc definitely did start positioning himself that way over time, downplaying the brothers' role, including in his own autobiography.
Fits the movie's title and theme.
Perfectly.
The buyout itself. The $2.7 million.
Accurate on the amount. And that handshake royalty debate is like the central drama of the film. As we discussed, historically debated conflicting accounts in the sources.
So the movie dramatizes the most contentious version.
Exactly. And the film's depiction of Kroc opening a competing McDonald's nearby to drive the Big M out of business.
That happened.
That part is historically accurate, according to our sources.
And Sonneborn's role. The real estate strategy.
The film correctly introduces Harry Sonneborn and definitely highlights how crucial his real estate idea was to Kroc's success and the company's ability to grow.
So overall, the film captures the essence, the ambition, the rise, the ethical questions.
Right, a core conflict.
But it definitely dramatizes and simplifies some specific historical details to make a better movie.
Which is what movies often do. It's a powerful story, but it really underscores why digging into the source material gives you that fuller, more nuanced picture.
Absolutely. Okay, so they had the Speedy system, Kroc's drive, Sonneborn's financial engine. They navigated the buyout. But how do you actually do it? How do you replicate that model billions of times across thousands of locations consistently all over the world?
Yeah, that takes more. It requires an incredibly precise, almost terrifyingly efficient machine.
A machine.
It really is. Global success like that isn't accidental. It's built on scientific precision and just rigorous standardization.
Kroc didn't just adopt Speedy, he obsessed over it.
Totally obsessed. He codified and standardized every single aspect: prep methods, portion sizes, cooking times, packaging, cleanliness protocols, down to the smallest detail.
And the result is that unwavering uniformity. That's the core promise, right?
It is. You know exactly what you're getting, whether you're in Des Plaines or Tokyo.
That consistency builds trust globally.
Absolutely fundamental. And to maintain that across a network that was just exploding in size, they needed a really sophisticated way to train people.
Which brings us to the legendary Hamburger University.
Hamburger U, established 1961, started in a basement, believe it or not.
Oh, a basement.
Yep. Fred L. Turner, who actually started as a grill cook and eventually became CEO, he was involved right from the start. It's grown into this major global training facility.
Teaching managers and owners.
Everything. Operations, quality control, leadership, service standards, the whole system.
I still can't get over the fact they literally award a degree in hamburgerology.
They do. And over 275,000 graduates have earned it. And a huge chunk of their global leadership actually came up through HU. It's more than just training. Our sources call it an organizational culture hub.
A culture hub, meaning
it was designed to embed the McDonald's system, the values, identify future leaders, groom them, and ensure that consistency as the company scaled massively.
And they apply that same level of precision, that hamburgerology, to the products themselves, like the French fries. They feel less like food and more like engineering.
They really are an engineering marvel, in a way. There are incredibly strict standards just for selecting the potatoes.
Like what?
Specific size ranges, specific shapes. They have to use the Russet Burbank varietal because of its starch content.
Okay.
Specific color requirements, how long they can be stored. It's intense.
And the process from potato to fry, even before it hits the restaurant fryer, sounds complex.
It is. Suppliers get the potatoes, peel them, cut them using high-pressure water knives.
Water knives?
Yeah. Then they blanch them, part fry them, flash freeze them, and ship them out.
All that before they even get cooked for the customer.
Right. Then, at the restaurant, cooked in a dedicated vat, specific oil blend, which, yes, we need to talk about that oil's history.
The tallow thing.
Exactly. Cooked at a precise temperature, like 168 degrees Celsius, for an exact duration, say 3 minutes.
To get that signature golden look and texture. Every time.
Every single time. One source perfectly described it as a marriage of food science and mass production.
That sums it up. You're not just frying potatoes, you're executing a precise, engineered process for billions of identical golden sticks. daily.
That's the goal. And that kind of strategic partnership, that precision, extends beyond potatoes. Look at Coca-Cola.
Right, they've been partners since 1955.
Almost from the beginning.
And is there actually a reason why McDonald's Coke often tastes better to people, or is that just in our heads?
According to the source material, no, it's by design.
Really?
How? Several things. They have the syrup delivered and stored in stainless steel tanks, not the usual plastic bags, which supposedly keeps it fresher. They use a specific high-standard water filtration system, gold standard, they call it.
Water quality matters.
Big time. Both the syrup and the filtered water are pre-chilled before mixing. The ratio is carefully calibrated to account for ice melt so it doesn't get watery.
Smart.
And get this, they apparently use slightly wider straws.
Wider straws, why?
The theory is it delivers more liquid to more taste buds faster, enhancing the flavor perception.
That's incredible detail. It's not just a feeling. There's actual engineering behind the Coke, too.
Right. And the potato suppliers are just as critical. That landmark deal with J.R. Simplot back in '67 was huge.
He was the frozen fry guy.
He was the first one who could reliably supply frozen fries at the consistency and scale Kroc needed. He convinced Kroc it could be done, specifically using that russet Burbank potato.
And Simplot is still a major supplier.
Largest domestic supplier. Then you have McCain and Lamb Weston internationally. Between them, they supply something like over 70% of McDonald's potatoes globally.
Wow. And strict standards all the way from the farm.
All the way. Strict quality control from potato harvest onwards. These are deep, long-term collaborations focused purely on quality and consistency.
So it's this combination. The Speedy blueprint, codified into a rigid system, a culture built around it through Hamburger U, and these deep, precise partnerships with suppliers.
That allows for that incredible, almost unbelievable consistency worldwide.
That's the machine behind the arches.
That's the machine.
Now, that intense focus on maintaining an iconic taste profile, especially for the fries, it led to a really significant controversy. The beef tallow story.
Yeah, that's a big one. For decades, the secret, well, maybe not secret, but the key to those world-famous fries was the cooking fat.
What was it, I guess?
A blend that was about 93% beef tallow, animal fat. That was a huge part of the original recipe and that distinctive flavor.
But then came the health concerns. Late 80s, early 90s, saturated fats, cholesterol.
Right. The whole narrative around animal fats shifted and pressure mounted on McDonald's to change.
So they did.
In 1990, they made a big announcement, switching to a 100% vegetable oil blend for the fries. And they explicitly cited health concerns as the reason.
But they didn't want to lose that signature taste that people loved and expected.
Exactly. That was the dilemma. So in an attempt to replicate that flavor profile using vegetable oil, they continued to use something called natural beef flavor.
Natural beef flavor. What was in that?
Well, that was the issue. It contained beef tallow derivatives, or beef extract.
So even though they switched the main cooking oil, there was still beef product in the fries.
Correct. And the problem arose because while they heavily advertised switching to 100% vegetable oil,
they didn't clearly disclose the continued use of this beef flavoring.
Precisely, which led to significant backlash, especially from vegetarian groups and religious communities like Hindus who avoid beef for ethical or religious reasons.
They felt misled. They thought they were eating purely vegetarian fries.
Deeply misled. And it led to lawsuits.
How did McDonald's resolve it?
In 2002, they agreed to settle multiple lawsuits. Part of the settlement involved issuing a public apology, paying $10 million to various Hindu, vegetarian, and other affected groups, and committing to much better, clearer ingredient disclosure moving forward.
Wow. That's a really powerful lesson in transparency, isn't it?
Absolutely. Trying to secretly maintain that iconic flavor by using an undisclosed ingredient, it created a massive crisis of trust. Cost them significantly reputationally and financially.
It really underscores that difficulty of balancing, an established product identity people love
with evolving consumer values, health concerns, and just the basic demand for clear information.
And interestingly, that natural beef flavor is actually still used in the U.S. fries today.
It is, though the ingredient disclosure is much clearer now, post-settlement.
And the whole conversation around dietary fats has shifted again recently.
It's fascinating, right? Now you see some pushback against certain processed seed oils and even some advocacy for bringing back traditional fats like tallow.
You see some smaller chains doing it.
Yeah, some smaller restaurants, fast casual places, are experimenting with cooking in tallow again. But for McDonald's, considering a widespread return to beef tallow in the U.S.
Huge or complex.
Incredibly complex. For all the reasons we just discussed, it would absolutely reignite those past controversies.
Alienate vegetarian and vegan customers all over again.
Big time. Tallow is also generally more expensive than vegetable oils, and sourcing a consistent, high-quality global supply at their scale. Huge logistical challenge.
Plus, people are used to the current taste now.
Right. An entire generation, maybe more, has grown up with the vegetable oil-fried taste. They might not even prefer the older tallow version if it came back.
So as of May 2025, based on our sources, there's no sign of a big U.S. switch back to tallow.
No indication of that. It just highlights that constant, delicate balancing act they have to perform. Maintain the core, adapt to trends, manage health perceptions, be transparent. It's tough.
Okay, so Ray Kroc initially thought big, maybe 1,000 U.S. restaurants.
Yeah, that was his early vision.
But the system, the brand, the machine, it clearly had legs way beyond that. It was destined for global reach.
Oh, absolutely. The potential was much bigger. The first steps outside the U.S. happened relatively early, actually. 1967.
Where did they go first?
Canada and Puerto Rico.
Okay. And from there?
It just exploded. By the early 21st century, we're talking around 34,000 outlets in over 115 countries.
Wow.
And the 1990s in particular, the growth was just phenomenal. Our sources say during that decade, they were opening a new McDonald's somewhere in the world roughly every 5 hours.
Every 5 hours. That's insane scaling.
Insane.
That Moscow opening in Pushkin Square in 1990, that felt like a huge cultural moment. I remember seeing pictures.
Oh, massive. Symbolically huge. Over 30,000 customers lined up on the first day. It represented reaching into previously closed-off markets like the former Soviet bloc.
So how did they manage that global scaling successfully? It wasn't just stamping the U.S. model everywhere, right?
No, definitely not. The key strategy is often called glocalization.
Glocalization. Heard that term. Think global, act local.
That's exactly it. It's this careful balancing act. You maintain the core global brand consistency.
The Big Mac, the fries.
Right. Those core items are generally available everywhere. That provides familiarity, trust, the McDonald's experience people expect. But you also adapt significantly. The menu, the sourcing, sometimes even operations, they're adjusted to reflect local tastes, dietary laws, religious beliefs, food trends, ingredient availability.
There's a constant negotiation.
A continuous process of adaptation for each market.
And our sources have some great examples of this localization, like in India, where obviously beef is a no-go for many.
Right. No beef or pork on the menu there at all. Instead, you get chicken items like the Maharaja Mac.
A chicken Big Mac equivalent.
Exactly. And hugely popular vegetarian options like the Mekalu Tiki, that's a spiced potato and pea patty burger. It's massive there.
And elsewhere in Asia. Japan,
you'll find things like the teriyaki McBurger or the ebi filet-o, which uses a shrimp patty.
Shrimp. Okay. What about places where rice is a staple?
Good point. In countries like China, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, you'll find rice dishes on the menu.
Makes sense.
And locally popular items like ayam goreng McD in Malaysia and Indonesia, that's bone-in fried chicken, different from McNuggets. South Korea has the bulgogi burger.
And the Philippines. Famously.
Yes. Chicken McDo served with mixed spaghetti.
Mixed spaghetti. It still blows my mind. That's some serious localization. How about Europe?
Absolutely. Germany often features the seasonal McRib, but also things like Nürnberger sausages sometimes.
Sausages, okay.
France, you get the McBaguette, and there's a really strong emphasis on pastries at McCafe.
Which started in Australia, you mentioned.
Yeah, interesting side note. McCafe originated in Melbourne in 1993, not France, though it fits the French market well. Italy has localized items like the pizzerato, kind of like a mini calzone.
And even closer to home, North America, outside the U.S.
Canada has the seasonal McLobster sandwich when available, and of course, poutine.
Gotta have poutine.
You gotta. Mexico and Latin America might feature McMullets for breakfast, those open-faced sandwiches, or sides like yuca fries, or desserts like guava pies.
And the Middle East? Different requirements there, too.
Definitely. You find items like the McArabia, which is grilled chicken, or kofta served on flatbread. And crucially, halal-certified menus are common throughout Muslim-majority countries.
This is such a key insight. They didn't just, force American fast food onto the world.
No.
They integrated into local food cultures while meticulously maintaining that core brand identity and the operational standards.
That's the glocalization balance.
And speaking of the core, their U.S. menu itself has evolved massively over time. Many U.S. innovations became global staples.
Oh yeah, think about the icons that started here. The Filet-O-Fish, developed back in '65 specifically for Catholic customers during Lent in Cincinnati.
Wow, didn't know that origin.
The Big Mac, 1968, famously created by a franchisee, Jim Delegati, in Pittsburgh.
Franchise innovation.
Yep. Quarter Pounder in '73. The Egg McMuffin in '75 that basically pioneered the entire fast food breakfast category.
Huge.
Huge. Then the full breakfast platter in '77. Happy Meal in '79. Chicken McNuggets in '83. McFlurry invented in Canada in '95, but huge everywhere.
Right. And more recently, all-day breakfast in the U.S. in 2015.
That was a big deal for a while. So yeah, this ability to innovate the core menu, stay true to the brand's efficiency, and then adapt it globally.
That's clearly been crucial for their sustained international growth.
It proves global reach doesn't have to mean bland homogenization if you approach it thoughtfully.
Okay, guiding a massive, evolving beast like this across different eras, different global markets, that takes distinct leadership.
For sure. And for many years, that leadership was centered at their headquarters in Oak Brook, Illinois, outside Chicago.
That place felt like a symbol, right? With Hamburger University there.
It really did, a hub for disseminating the culture. But they relocated the HQ into Chicago's West Loop in 2018.
A shift to a more urban, modern presence.
Exactly. And our sources break down the company's executive history into roughly 4 main eras, each with a different focus, different challenges.
Okay. Era 1.
The foundational McDonald Brothers era, obviously, 1940 to 1961.
Focus.
Purely operational innovation. Creating and refining the Speedy system, their impact on international success was providing that core concept, but they weren't doing global expansion themselves.
Got it. Era 2.
The Ray Kroc era, roughly 1955 to 1984.
His focus was
Franchising, standardization, national expansion, hammering out that real estate model with Sonneborn, building the brand identity,
and his impact on international.
Laying the absolutely critical groundwork, creating the scalable, replicable system and the corporate structure that allowed for future global growth.
Okay, Era 3, the post-Kroc era.
Right, roughly late 70s through the late 1990s. This includes leaders like Fred Turner, who came up from Grill Cook, and Michael Quinlan.
Mailroom to CEO story.
That's him. Started in '63, CEO from '87 to '98, first CEO with an MBA.
And this era's focus?
Aggressive. Global. Expansion. Pushing into huge numbers of new countries, especially after the Cold War ended, and significant menu diversification to cater to all those new markets.
So this era had the biggest impact on international success?
According to our source, yes. This post-Kroc era had the most significant direct impact on achieving McDonald's massive global footprint. Quinlan, for instance, presided over nearly doubling international locations in the 90s, adapting menus for places like Israel and India.
Although not every idea worked, you mentioned the Arch Deluxe.
Yeah, that was a famous flop under his tenure. Shows experimentation continued.
Okay. And the final era?
The 21st century era, late 1990s to the present.
Focus shifts again.
Definitely. Towards modernization, leveraging technology, addressing those growing health and sustainability concerns we talked about, enhancing the customer experience, digital transformation.
And the impact on international now.
It's more about adapting existing operations in established markets to new tech, new consumer demands, deepening their presence rather than just planting flags everywhere.
That breakdown really shows how leadership challenges evolve, doesn't it? Invention, then growth, then global rollout, now adaptation in tech.
Exactly. And the source is pretty clear. That post-Kroc era, the 80s and 90s, that's when they truly exploded globally.
Now, the source also tackles a tricky question. Who is the most valuable executive, the MVE, from the very beginning up to May 2025?
Yeah, that's always subjective, but the source makes a case.
Acknowledging the others.
Right. It's clear the brothers were the essential innovators of the core concept. Sonneborn was the absolute financial architect with the real estate strategy. Can't overstate his importance.
But the source names Kroc as MVE. Why?
The argument is based on his role as the visionary empire builder. It was his relentless ambition, his drive, his ability to standardize operations through things like Hamburger U, build that scalable franchise system, and crucially, embrace Sonneborn's game-changing financial model.
That transformed it all.
That fundamentally changed the scale and scope. The source says he created an industry template. He took the brothers' local success and turned it into a global powerhouse concept.
It's interesting, like you said, how most valuable depends on the era. Kroc was maybe the perfect person for that foundational empire-building phase.
That seems to be the argument, yeah.
So where does this global titan go from here?
Yeah.
Especially looking at the U.S. market, which
Sure.
sure is super competitive.
Right. Their current strategy seems very focused on what they call committing to the core.
Which they summarize with.
The 4Ds.
Yeah.
Digital, delivery, drive-through, and restaurant development.
The Ds.
Yep. Under the current CEO, Chris Kempczinski, they've made structural changes to try and be more agile, speed up tech rollouts, new products. They even created a specific role, Chief Restaurant Experience Officer.
That title tells you a lot about the focus, experience.
Exactly. And technology really feels like the modern version of the Speedy service system, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's the new engine for speed and convenience.
Totally. AI in drive-thrus for faster, more accurate orders. The mobile app for ordering, payment, loyalty points. Digital menu boards, self-service kiosks inside.
Streamlining everything.
And constantly refining the drive-thru is still absolutely critical for U.S. sales, plus building out delivery partnerships.
And the sources mentioned an operator-first mindset with this tech, making sure it works for the franchisees.
Yeah, trying to ensure it actually reduces complexity for the people running the restaurants and the staff, not just adds new burdens. That's key for getting buy-in across thousands of locations.
And the ambition for scale is still there.
Oh, yeah. Despite being huge, they have a stated public target of reaching 50,000 restaurants globally by 2027.
50,000. The growth principle is constant, even if the methods change.
Seems so. But they also have to navigate all those changing U.S. consumer trends we touched on. Health, sustainability, the experience itself.
So what does that mean in practice?
Continued menu evolution. More salads, fruit options, lower calorie choices, pushing things like the McPlant, their plant-based options.
Ingredient changes too.
Yep. Like stopping preservatives in most U.S. burgers back in 2018. Providing clear nutritional info is just standard now. And big pushes on sustainability, reducing emissions, renewable packaging, that sort of thing.
And the experience part being a battleground now.
Absolutely. It's not just about the food and price anymore. It's engaging customers on social media, getting feedback, strong loyalty programs, adapting the actual restaurant formats for different needs, delivery hubs, smaller footprints, etc.
What other U.S. strategies did the sources highlight?
Building and strengthening customer loyalty is huge. Trying to keep people coming back in a market with infinite choices.
How?
Leveraging data analytics is key. Targeted ads, personalized promotions through the app.
Yeah.
And our sources make a really interesting point here.
What's that?
That customer data is now emerging as potentially as valuable an asset to McDonald's as Harry Sonneborn's real estate strategy was historically.
Data is the new real estate. Wow.
Yeah. Plus, collaborations, celebrities, brands to create buzz, focusing on category ownership, strengthening their core offerings, beef, chicken, coffee. So when you think of getting one of those, McDonald's is the default choice, reducing competitor consideration.
And balancing it all.
Yeah.
Value versus quality versus experience.
Exactly, that constant balancing act. Plus, keeping an eye on broader industry trends like dynamic pricing. Even if it's not their stated strategy now, the landscape is changing fast.
Wow. What an incredible journey it's been, really. From that single innovative drive-in
In San Bernardino.
to this absolute global titan.
It really is remarkable. A story completely fueled by, the McDonald brothers' foundational operational genius.
Ray Kroc's relentless empire-building drive and standardization.
And Harry Sonneborn's revolutionary financial real estate strategy. You needed all three.
And those core strengths they established way back when, efficiency, standardization, value, that incredibly potent branding, they're still absolutely essential today.
Totally. But what's maybe just as impressive is their capacity to evolve.
Yeah.
Adapting the menu constantly, expanding globally, but doing it with that localized touch, navigating huge controversies like the Tallow issue and learning from them, even grappling with how movies portray their own history.
The current landscape, especially in the U.S., is undeniably challenging. Tons of competition, changing tastes.
No doubt.
Yeah.
But their intense focus now on those 4Ds, digital, delivery, drive-through, development, it signals they understand the modern battlefield and are investing heavily.
Their future really seems to hinge on that delicate balance, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Staying true to the operational discipline that made them huge, while embracing the pretty radical adaptations needed for tech changes and shifting consumer demands.
The Golden Arches. They represent so much more than just fast food now.
Oh, absolutely. It's a global icon, yeah. But also a symbol of business innovation, for better or worse sometimes, that has profoundly shaped global habits, supply chains, corporate strategy.
And based on their current actions, their investments, their strategies.
They appear poised to remain a dominant force. navigating the future with that familiar mix of, like, systematic precision and surprising adaptability.
So let's leave you, the listener, with this thought to mull over.
Okay.
Considering how Harry Sonneborn's brilliant real estate strategy built McDonald's financial empire, making the land under the restaurants the primary hidden asset, what does it really mean for the company today that customer data is now seen as potentially equally valuable?
Data as the new land.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How might this focus on a digital asset rather than a physical one change the fundamental dynamics of the business, especially its relationship with franchisees, compared to when land was the key?
That's a great question to chew on, something to think about next time you see those arches.
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in.